Greetings. This is Dr. Nagartna from National Law School. Human rights issues are varied and comprehensive, and they cover, in fact, almost all essential facets of life of all human beings, irrespective of any grounds of discrimination, including the profession to which he belongs to. In fact, the quality of an individual's life depends a lot on the dignity of life of such individual. Policing in the modern society, especially the one which is committed to democratic values, is a complex proposition. Policing in a country like India, in fact, is a challenging task. The police today have multifaceted functions to perform, which ranges from traditional crime investigation to that of regulating human behavior in the society. Police generally is considered as a coercive arm of the state, and they are entrusted with the most important duty of the state, including maintenance of law and order, investigation of crimes, and prevention of crimes. Effective and efficient discharge of this duty of the police, in fact, is possible only if they in turn receive sufficient protection of law, especially protection of their rights and their human rights. On the other side of the system, police have to strive to work with number of stressful peculiarities which are encountered by them in their day-to-day functioning. Being burdened with law and order problems and crime fighting, they have to protect themselves with several internal vagaries in the course of their duty. Coming to Indian police system, this police system in our country is even today largely influenced by the colonial system. In fact, the Austin's concept of authority of state even today dwells in this particular system, thus exposing police to the control of the state, compulsive atmosphere when it comes to work, which are hardly respectful of their human rights in the course of their working. Today's concept of police power, in fact, is a confusing concept which is hard to be understood. Does this indicate that the police have some discretionary power? Or is this an indication of the independent power that they've got from the state? Or would this also suggest that they are highly accountable? Especially when it comes to Indian police, all these questions even today goes unanswered. According to Parvesh K. Attri, police today have to perform a lot of rules and functions, and some of these includes that they have to act as the law enforcement agencies, and in doing so they'll have to uphold the rule of the law, which is the basis of a democratic society. Police have to continue to act as an executive arm of the government. They have to also protect rights and liberties of the citizens, thereby acting as the protectors, and hence protect these rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution to its citizens. They also have a duty to protect the weak and the poor from oppression and exploitation. Police also are expected to act as an agency of social service and also, most importantly, an instrument of social change. Police have to not only prevent crime but also should act as an agency of social defense and fight the criminogenic factors. Use of force by police is something that often gets criticized by the mass. Law vests upon the police with the authority to use the force, especially legitimately, as long as it is situationally justified as well against the citizens. But this mandate of the police to use the force against the citizens can be used by the police only to prevent crime or only in the course of their duty. However, this raises the key issue that are police themselves not indulging in unnecessary violence and excessive use of force, thereby disregarding human rights of another? In fact, this very conception is the one that makes people not to think about the human rights of the police in turn. According to Sir Robert Mark, the fact that the British police is amenable to law and that he acts on behalf of the community and not under the mantle of the government makes them least powerful, most accountable and most acceptable police in the world. And the same goes true even with the Indian police. Today's policeman, according to W.S. Gilbert, is actually not a happy one. The role of police in a democratic society is a very intricate one and is often unappreciated. From no other profession, so much is demanded with so little recompense. Policing today definitely is a challenging task. That's because of varied reasons and factors, which includes alarming increase in the number of crimes, change in the nature of crimes. This increase in the number of crime is due to the growth of population, urbanization, changing societal values and norms. This also includes reasons such as the nature and force of crime, which is also consistently changing in the society. In fact, today, crime is continuing to increase day by day. And the fact is that crimeless society is a myth. Today, crime rates are also increasing due to large number of factors. Some of them are the ease and the advantage that the technology is providing, such as cyber technology, the easy availability of illegal weapons, illegal firearms or other contrabands, spread of international terrorism, politically sponsored factional violence, Naxalite problems, extremism, religious and communal violence, drug trafficking and many other social elements including other antisocial activities. So, today more and more crimes are getting committed, thereby requiring more and more responsibility to be discharged by the police, thereby exposing them to more and more stressful working atmosphere. Coming to the conceptual understanding of the term human rights. Human rights, as we all understand, is a very comprehensive term. In fact, these are inalienable, fundamental or basic rights to which a person is inherently entitled only because or simply because he or she is a human being. Human right, in fact, is characterized by few unique characteristic features. And they are that these rights are inherent in all human beings for the reason that they are human beings, and these rights are inalienable, however, within qualified legal boundaries, and most importantly, these are equally applicable to all. Human rights are derived from inherent dignity and worth of the persons, and they are universal, inalienable and equal. They are inherent in every human being regardless of race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth or any other status including their occupation or professional status. They cannot be taken away from or surrendered by any person for whatever reason. Human rights of police, however, when you think upon, indicates that there is some unheard plight that is involved within the system. Police, being a wing of the state, is expected to ensure safety and security of rest of the citizens. But the unheard plights of the police, especially at the lowest cadre, is something that the law or the state doesn't often take note of. Human rights of police, therefore, is at peril, largely due to a lot of problems and a lot of reasons, and most importantly because of the systemic defects and deficiencies that are there within the department and within the system and also within the state. Fighting against plights requires freedom to be free and exercise of irreducible human rights. Paradoxically, the persons who are required to protect human rights, that is police, themselves are often denied of their minimum human rights. Delights and sadistic pleasures of politico-ministerial functionaries and unmindful superiors results in the plights of constables and other police officers working at the lower level. Police and human rights, in fact, is a very oftenly discussed topic, however, for wrong reasons. Police often are criticized for being violators of others' human rights, but the reality is that this is just one side of the story or one side of the coin. On the other side, we see gross violations of rights of human rights of the police officers taking place. Police, being the power repositories of the state agency, who are expected to protect and promote human rights of others, often face violations to a very large extent. Dr. Shyam Sundar, a police officer, through his research study, has found that police today will have to bear a lot of stress and in fact are the ones whose human rights are violated to a large extent. They stand day in and day out on dusty roads and sands and no season is unwelcome for their duty. Their physical and psychological energy is drained during their tenure. They even sacrifice their lives, which goes unwept. No human rights organizations would be sympathetic, leave alone have any discussion about this particular issue. They hardly receive any attention even from the academia or research scholars and other allied fields, as they don't treat this as worth being pondered upon or researched about. Human rights of lower career police officers again is something that indicates are grossly violated. A constable today has in fact the maximum interface with public. He often comes in direct contact with the public and he is expected to perform extremely important role in the society. He is expected to perform duties in beats, patrols, pickets, and is also expected to keep surveillance over the history-sheeted or other potential criminals as per their superiors' orders. His duty also includes, apart from facilitating regular crime investigation and prevention of crime, collection and timely dissemination of information and intelligence related to crimes and criminals, developing cordial relationship with local citizens, committees, voluntary organizations, and also to keep up with the knowledge of households in the beat area and to convey information relating to persons and events that cause or are likely to cause law and order situation or widespread disturbances. His duty also includes securing attendance of witnesses, execution of warrants, serving of summons, escorting prisoners, arrested persons injured or dead to the hospital, guarding prisoners and the property in custody, to keep a list of senior citizens living alone or visit them occasionally, to keep a list of vital installations and the places of worship, and mainly also to watch such sensitive areas and to maintain watch over all these religious places and vital installations, to keep a track of any brewing social, religious or sectarian conflicts or unrest, to keep a watch on the movement of foreigners in the area, to make entries in the prescribed registers and forms and maintain records that are entrusted to him, particularly those relating to his beat area, and the other duties that are allocated to him by his superior officers, including the station house officer or any others superior to him or elsewhere in the police manual or other such applicable rules and regulations or orders or notifications. He is also expected to help and assist in dealing with accidents, natural calamities. He is also expected to facilitate community functions, fairs, festivals, exhibitions, and other social events and gatherings. He is also supposed to take care of situations during strikes, riots, large assemblies, elections, bandobast, security duties, and is also supposed to behave courteously with all sections of the people and to treat poor people, children, women, aged, or other weaker sections of the society with consideration, sympathy, and helpful attitude. Thus, the duties that he is supposed to perform are many more than what's just been now said. Research findings also indicates that the police are the one who are overstressed, mainly due to overburdened work, and the other reasons that puts them in distress is regular denial of leave or holidays, other health-related hazards. According to Bailey, Indian police are always subjected to a call. Night work is the standard feature in their life. They are not paid for overtime work. They often work on holidays and during festivals. They are expected to risk their lives. And finally, the responsibility thrust upon them is enormous. Factors that leads to deprivation of human rights of police officers, especially the police constables, are heavy duty pressure, constant risk with criminal gangs, poor or unhealthy working condition, colonial legacy, political interference, poor professionalism and inadequate training skills, social isolation, lack of modern technological expertise, poor police and community relationship, and many more. When it comes to political interference, we often see that they are pressurized with undue and illegitimate political interference. which generally leads to abuse and maladministration in the entire system. The police functionary is today manipulated by some political leaders who abuse their power of appointments and transfers at the cost of public interest. The main areas of their interference in fact includes appointments, transfers, rewards and punishments. The police system today in fact has become, unfortunately, tools of oppression in the hands of some corrupt politicians. Hence, today police have constantly to work amidst political pressure. They also suffer with what's actually referred to by R.C. Dixit as stagnation syndrome. According to him, police department as a whole suffers from this stagnation syndrome, which makes the officers and the men highly competitive in their anxiety to rise in the department. They become overzealous to show the result without caring for the means. Such officers and men, in fact, are the easy prey to the politicians who are always in search of their own men in the police, paving the way for violation of all norms. Today, we're in fact ignoring harsh realities. In order to maintain law and order and to bring peace in society, police often sacrifice their own lives and their own human rights. Police mortality over here, in fact, is increasing. And this, in fact, is this testimony to the plight that they suffer with. As per the crime record of India, during the years 2004 to 2013, 6,578 police personnel were killed while performing their duties. Unfortunately, police, especially at the lower rank, are the ones who get killed while trying to save the lives of others, including the VIPs or the political leaders or such other important personalities. Today's police, in fact, are working in the most harsh working atmosphere. According to a research study, the constables in India, in fact, are expected to travel for more than 2 or 2.5 hours to their office and to the workplace, and in fact, they work for more than 12 hours a day. Police constables and also their family often are deprived of their own basic human rights. The traits of Indian constables. Police constable, in fact, as was earlier said, is the first person from the department who comes in direct contact with the public. He gets lesser emoluments, he has large working hours, he is also subjected to superiors' orders. He also suffers with lack of education or technical training and such other similar opportunities. He gets therefore less chance of promotion as well. And in fact, these are the traits of Indian police officers, especially at the lower rank, especially of the constables. The incidences of constables committing suicide also in the police station, in fact, itself is an indication of the fact that they are suppressed and are often harassed by their superior police officers. According to Dr. G. Radha Kalyani, the difficulties faced by Indian police while they discharge their duty or perform their functions are that they suffer with inadequate staff, inadequate investigating staff, or working hours, lack of scientific and technical aids and technical personnel, lack of resources to modernize investigation techniques and to develop scientific temper, increase in organized crime with scientific and technical aids, political interference and criminalization of politics, obsolescent and outdated organizational system. It also includes other reasons such as no serious examination of existing criminal laws and policies, lack of cooperation by the courts and lawyers, attacks on the image of the police by media, attacks by human rights organizations, co-oping, frequent transfers, and most important of all, lack of social support and non-cooperation by the public. And the list is endless and continues. The disparities between the central service police officers and the state service police officers are few untold quandaries in the police system. The reasons for deprivation of human rights of police are huge political interference. Police authorities and political leaders often sabotage the lower level of police constables. Hence, they face functional interference. Refusal by police results in their unjustified transfers. We can also see lack of professionalism amongst them. That's because of lack of professional code of ethics and lack of training skills and lack of upgrading latest technological or scientific knowledge related to their profession. Lack of modern equipment and technology coupled with outdated judicial principles of criminal law is again something that results in this lack of professionalism. All of these also contributes to the use of third degree methods and extra legal force by the police while they discharge their duty. Public dissatisfaction and lack of trust is another serious issue. According to Bailey, work of the police is arduous, often directly unpleasant and sometimes dangerous. And upon this is never usually appreciated by public at large. With the enactment of plethora of legislations, the demands in fact on the police have grown over the years, and this has only added to their workload, their stress, and indirectly denying their human rights. Hence, we can see that the human rights of police is in fact denied at all steps. Inadequate basic amenities and facilities is something that they struggle to deal with. According to Minokha OP, in his Law and Order Administration and Good Governance, the working conditions of police are undoubtedly deplorable, which also affects their approach and attitude towards their work. Compared to the job responsibility and expectation, the working environment, including salaries and promotional avenues of different ranks, is rather bad. The housing problem in the department is acute. Prolonged absence from the family deprives the policeman of all the delicate and fundamental things that go with the family. The need of the hour, therefore, is to remove dehumanizing factors and to improve the living conditions and working environment for policemen. Problem also continues due to large number of other reasons, such as the department is understaffed, they are paid with low salary, which in fact is the reason for the corruption in the department, lack of grievance redressal mechanism, lack of promotional avenues, problem of police housing in fact is very acute in most of the states, including in India. Further, the distorted media coverage adds to the menace. The media is hardly playing any constructive role when it comes to this particular issue. Minor aberrations gets blown out of proportions and good work hardly gets reported or gets underreported. Persistence of British legacy in India is another concern. Such oppressive, vindictive attitude of police owes to the British colonial rule in India. During British administration in India, the police in fact was an instrument of the government and it was used as an instrument of oppression by the rulers, whereby the then British government exclusively engaged the police against the people to be oppressed, suppressed, beaten up or tortured and lathi charged and fired upon, particularly if you are oppressed to the Sarkar or the government or any instrument of the government. And this tendency and the attitude unfortunately continues even today. Police still retain this oppressive or vindictive rule which they assumed during British rule. This maybe is also one of the reasons for lack of public trust or confidence upon the police. Human rights of police are largely violated and this includes their right to life, liberty and dignity, right to equality, right to equal protection of life, right to be free from slavery or servitude, right to an effective remedy or grievance, right to family and children, right to freedom of speech and expression, right to freedom of movement, further, right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association, right to social security, right to rest and leisure, right to participation in cultural and religious life of the community, right to perform duties to the community with dignity without any interference, and many more. When it comes to human rights of women police officers, there is again lot of untold stories that are often not heard also, even if told. Women in the police department, again, especially at the lower rank level, often suffer with health hazards, work stress, sexual harassment, and also do not find sufficient family support. According to John M. Valanti, the pressures of law enforcement puts officers at risk for high blood pressure, insomnia, increased level of destructive stress hormones, heart problems, post-traumatic stress disorders, and also suicide. Further, the study found that the impact of police work on women officers was much more, and this subjected them to more stressful atmosphere compared to male officers. It is still basically a male occupation, and women can feel socially isolated in the job. Also, most women have more home responsibilities to worry about, family, childcare, etc., and this adds to their work stress. What about the police on traffic duty? The constables and other officers on traffic duty in fact have the task of regulating traffic. In some places, they are the people who stand in sun as high as at 45 degrees Celsius. It's easy to talk about policing sitting in an AC rooms, but they do not have these comforts when they work on roads and in hot sun. According to Dr. D. M. Satpathy, in his study, which was conducted involving 48 traffic police officers, that included 43 men and 5 women police personnel. 43.75% of police officers were subjected to anemia. 27.08% of police officers were in fact suffering with musculoskeletal disorders. 25% suffered with hypertension, and 18.75% of the police personnel suffered with eosinophilia. They were subjected to these problems owing to prolonged long hours of work. Hence, like industries, traffic police personnel should be periodically examined for their mental health status apart from their physical health status. High levels of stress can also lead to many other serious problems, such as physiological symptoms which might include headaches, stomachache, backache, ulcers, heart attacks, and also psychological problems such as anxiety, depression, flashbacks and panic attacks symptoms, and many more. Stress amongst policemen may manifest in form of fatigue, depression, inability to concentrate and impulsive behavior. More so amongst traffic policemen because their nature of work is such that they hardly can control their temper. In fact, during VIP visits, the patient's level of a traffic cop hits the nadir as they not only have to put in more hours of extra duty but also are accountable to any lapse during the convoy movement. Job stress is one of the most common afflictions among police personnel. Police personnel are often involved in dealing with criminals, VIPs' security duties, outdated laws, and collapse of other agencies of criminal justice system. So great can be the stakes as the entire life of police officers is full of tension and stress. They work under extreme conditions which may even lead to deprivation of their life. The stress also has negative effect on their health and makes them more susceptible to heart attacks and strokes. Some of the identified causes of stress in police officers include lenient court sentences, administrative policies, equipment, community relations and shift works. It also includes police organizational stressors, organizational practices and characteristics, criminal justice system practices and characteristics, public practices and characteristics, police work itself, and also set of internal, external, task-related and individual stresses. Working environment is one of the sources of police stress, and this can be internal as well as external. Internal work environment includes factors that are related to organizational structure. The climate can be even greater source of stress for the police officers. Shift schedules that disrupt normal sleep patterns and social life. authoritarian and management style, poor interpersonal relationship with supervisors, interdepartmental politics, lack of adequate planning and resources, lack of promotion and transfer opportunities, excessive paperwork, lack of autonomy in performing duties, and lack of recognition for work accomplishment are amongst the organizational stresses that are faced by members of the police force. These stress experiences impair their health and also result in high rate of mental illness. The stress-related illness are of particular concern, and in fact they are reflected in tragically high suicide rates, divorce, alcoholism, decreased job satisfaction, and burnout. Finn asserts that law enforcement is associated with high rates of divorce, alcoholism, suicide, and other emotional problems. He further states that high levels of stress, both the official and the organization, adds to the menace. The cumulative effects of this stress can also lead to impaired performance and reduced productivity. Occupational stress has been related to heart disease, hypertension, and upper respiratory tract infections, peptic ulcers, reduced immunity, migraines, alcoholism, anxiety, as well as other mental disorders. This has further also been said to be the cause for high divorce rates, high rates of physical illness, high rates of suicide, and many police officials turning to alcoholism as they try to get rid of memories and problems. Police officials also will have to face scrutiny from the community and his or her own peers on a daily basis. According to Brass, the stress could be attributed to conflicting nature of a police officer's work. He is a savior, a helper, and at times a referee, and then also a law enforcer. He or she also has to carry the load for others and won't have much time or energy to save for their own or for their own family problems. According to Colvin, this police officer is expected to accomplish a mood swing to loving husband or wife, understanding parent, school supporter, and community volunteer. According to Seville, police officials receive poor salary and the increases have not been sufficient because there are other increases as well, such as medical aids, pension contributions, and taxes. Benefits such as subsidized vehicles and cell phones are in fact not allotted to officials, especially at the lower rank or middle management level, and this seems as if these people live from hand to mouth. According to K. M. Mathur, the sources of stress in CRPF and BSF personnel deployed in Punjab, Jammu and Kashmir, northeastern states and other parts of the country are in fact those that are identified as having been the source for the stress that they face. And this includes the traumatic events like witnessing dead bodies of their own colleagues or innocent people, separation from their family and children, irregular grant of leave, refusal for grant of leave, inadequate resources, and inequalities in pay and job status, job overload, non-recognition, constant threat to life, and subsequent tension. Besides being an organization with problems of hierarchy and administrative ineffectiveness, police organizations present a further unique challenge. And this challenge comes in the form of potentially traumatic experience, such as life-threatening physical assault or witnessing disturbing images of death, duty-related violent injury like shooting, pursuit of an armed suspect, response to a disturbing scene like death, in fact are the reasons why they get exposed to stressful incidents that often gets related to emotional intensity. The police work is emotionally and physically dangerous job. The reasons for this are the ever-present danger of physical violence, potential sudden death, and exposure to other health hazards. They also have to make critical life and death decisions within seconds. They have to face danger rather than escape, and they have to act as a peacemaker and arbitrator. They have to face the effects of murder, violence, accidents, and disasters by viewing and handling dead, mangled bodies. He or she will witness children dying, people being beaten up almost to death, burglaries, thefts, and domestic violence, alcohol abuse and addiction. According to Corelli, in order to handle the pressures of the job, these police guys join together and usually their favorite pastime is drinking. It is an odd policeman who doesn't drink. According to Valentine, alcohol abuse among police officers is double that of general population. According to Gelden Hines, most police officials who have to kill a suspect in the line of police duty experience a great deal of conflicting emotions like guilt even if they were completely justified in using violence. They experience a great deal of mental trauma and depression due to the fact that they have to actually take the life of another human being. There is nothing glamorous about killing another human being. This can have devastating consequences that erode the emotional well-being of any person, even that of a seasoned police official. Mathur, in a study involving 75 gazetted officers and 81 subordinate officers, upon the study reported that the police personnel were well aware of distress encountered by them on a day-to-day basis. According to him, about 85% of the officers suffered from stress due to their occupation. The major stressors among the senior officers were neglecting family, inspection tours, frequent transfers, trouble with boss and staying away from family. Major stressors amongst the officers in subordinate level included neglect of family, non-grant of leave, doing VIP security duty and performing unofficial work. This stressful working atmosphere also leads to reduced morale, public relation related problem, labor management kind of a friction, tardiness and absenteeism, decreased turnover due to leaves of absence or early retirements because of stress related problems and disabilities. Band and Manown in fact assert that the owing body of evidence suggests that the main source of psychological distress amongst the police is the police organization itself. Civil, on the other hand, asserts that the law enforcement agency in fact is by largely the most dangerous occupation, mainly because of poor administration and supervision, inadequate salary amongst many other such reasons. Stress amongst police officers has also been connected to police misconduct and can also have a negative effect on the law enforcement organization due to the lawsuits that results from officers' performance. The other organizational effects includes impaired officer performance, lower productivity, poor morale, tardiness and missed work. Law enforcement organizations provide a wide variety of stress management interventions aimed at ameliorating officer stress. Coming to the legal framework. When it comes to the laws at the international level, we do have certain international legal instruments that togetherly forms to be the International Bill of Human Rights, and this includes the UN Charter, including its preamble and some of its extremely important provisions such as Article 1, Article 13b, 55, 56, 62, 68a and 76c. Further, this also includes the most important one, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This also gets added with the provisions that are there in the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights along with its two optional protocols, and most importantly, the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights with its optional protocol. In addition to this, when it comes to police personnel or any other law enforcement officer, the Code of Conduct for Law Enforcement Officials, which was passed through a resolution by UN's General Assembly in 1979, is noteworthy. The United Nations, in order to implement human rights amongst law enforcement agencies, has given this code of ethics. As law enforcement officials are part of criminal justice system, which aims to prevent and control crime, the conduct of the functionary will have an impact on the whole system. There is a need to have ethical standards through a well-concerned and defined code of conduct which would help the law enforcement agencies to administer self-discipline. The Code of Conduct sets before law enforcement officials ideal and ethical standards of behavior. Through law enforcement officials were performing their duties diligently and with dignity and respect for principles of human rights, there is enough potential for abuse in the exercise of their duties, and hence the code. According to Article 2 of this code, in performance of their duty, the law enforcement officials should respect and protect human dignity and maintain and uphold the human rights of all other persons. This provision emphasizes the use of force by the law enforcement agencies, which actually should be exceptional, as it implies that the law enforcement officials may be authorized to use force as it is reasonably necessary under the circumstances for prevention of crime or in effecting or arresting the lawful arrest of an offender or a suspected offender, no force going beyond that may be hence used. According to Article 5 of the Code, no law enforcement official may inflict, instigate or tolerate any act of torture or other cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment, nor may any law enforcement official invoke superior's orders or exceptional circumstances as a state of war or a threat of war, a threat to national security, internal political instability or any other public emerging as a justification of torture or other cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. This international code, along with other international legal instruments, in fact, instead of protecting the human rights of police officers, rather imposes obligations on these law enforcement agencies to take care of human rights of others. When it comes to Indian law framework, we have provisions from the Constitution, the special enactments that deals with human rights, and some other criminal laws. The Constitution of India, through its preamble, as well as the provisions, especially from Part 3, which deals with fundamental rights, in fact guarantees to its citizen the right to life, equality, freedom, the right against exploitation, the right to constitutional remedies, and many other such fundamental rights as well as human rights. Part 4 of the Constitution, which deals with directive principles of state policy, requires the state to ensure welfare of people and protection of human rights of people, social security, just and humane condition of work, promotion of weaker section, standard of living, and all these should also be strived to be achieved by the state. In fact, the Constitution of India is a living socio-economic document, and it is one of the most rights-based constitutions in the world. However, except for isolated cases of one or two, no real attempt has been made to ameliorate the conditions of police with specific reference to constables by invoking the provisions of this constitution or any other legal enactment in the country. According to Article 33 of the Indian Constitution, Parliament may by law determine to what extent any of the rights conferred by this part shall in their application to A. the members of armed force, or B. the members of forces charged with the maintenance of public order, or C. the persons employed in any bureau or any other organization established by the state for the purposes of intelligence or counterintelligence, or persons employed in or in connection with telecommunication systems set up for the purpose of any force, bureau or organization referred to in clauses A to C, be restricted or abrogated so as to ensure the proper discharge of their duties and the maintenance of discipline among them. In fact, the police officers who always work under this emergency provision are deprived of their rights, including their human rights. Thus, the deprivation of the rights of police through an ordinary law has a constitutional status, as this constitutional provision empowers the government to impose such restrictions upon such vital, fundamental and human rights. This provision, in fact, can also override Article 21 and 22. In fact, these legislations passed under Article 33 can restrict the operation of fundamental rights, including the right to equality, freedom of expression, freedom of association, personal liberty, and many more. The Police Forces Restriction of Rights Act of 1966 in fact is one such enactment that was passed under this provision of the Constitution. The Supreme Court in fact has also upheld the legal validity of this enactment in the case of Delhi Police Non-Gazetted Karmachari Sangh versus Union of India in 1987. Coming to the Protection of Human Rights Act of 1993. This enactment provides for an organizational structure that looks at protecting human rights of the citizens at large. The enactment also provides for the establishment of human rights commissions at the national and the state level, and most importantly, this also establishes human rights courts at district level. And this enactment, most importantly, under section 2D, defines human rights as the right relating to life, liberty, equality, and dignity of the individual guaranteed by the Constitution or embodied in the international covenants and enforceable by courts in India. The National Human Rights Commission and the State Human Rights Commission, along with many other departmental entities, work under this enactment to achieve the objective of protection of human rights of all. Unfortunately, they do not take care of the concerns of human rights of police. Various recommendations with regard to the reform in the police department has come through various committees and commissions. To name a few, the central and state governments appointed commissions and committees such as the International Laws and Standards that Affect Policing, which in fact provides for the UN reports, the Critical Appraisal of Police Act of 1861, the National Police Commissions, which was established to study the problem of the police and to review at the national level, the police system after independence, which has come with 8 reports, the Gore Committee on Police Training of 1972, the Ribeiro Committee report of 1999, the Padmanabhaiah Committee report of 2000, 7 Steps to Police Reform report of 2006, and the list goes on. The period between 1903 and 1977, the period of 74 years, the submission of its report by the last Indian Police Commission and the appointment of the Police Commission in 1977 saw many important changes taking place, especially at the social, economic and political life of the country. Some of the changes in fact had direct bearing on the role that the police was supposed to perform. The Commission submitted 8 detailed reports between 1979 to 1981, which contained comprehensive recommendations covering the entire range of police functioning. But as usual, the government did not act much upon this. According to Padmanabhaiah Committee on Police Reforms and on Police Accountability, because of the nature of the working of the police departments, large number of complaints are received every year against police personnel. Thus, the complaints originate from the nature of police job, not from the manner in which that job is done. The second report of the National Police Commission, while referring to the problem of political interference in the working of the police, say that the superintendents of the state government over the police should be limited to ensure that the police performance is in strict accordance with the law. In the performance of its tasks, the police should be subject to overall guidance from the government, which should lay down broad policies for adoption in different situations. There should, however, be no instructions in regard to actual operations in the field. In regard to investigation work, in any case, the police are beyond any intervention by the executive or politicians. But this actually happens only under the law. In reality, it's the other way around. This recommendation also further said that the police officers should be effectively protected against whimsical and malafide transfer or suspension orders. There should be a provision in the Police Act specifying the authorities competent to issue such orders regarding different ranks. Any such orders passed by any authority other than those specified in the Act in fact should be considered as null and void. The report further suggested for separation of the investigating staff from law and order staff. The investigating staff should be separated from law and order staff at the police station level itself, and also, most importantly, in the urban areas. The investigation work should be closely supervised by a gazetted officer regardless of the location of the relevant station. In fact, this was also the recommendation that the Supreme Court had given in a case that was filed by a retired police officer, Sri Prakash Singh, in a writ petition that he had filed in 1996. But till date, this recommendation of the Commission as well as the Supreme Court is not effectively implemented throughout the country. The Padmanabhiya Committee on Police Reforms, in its report that was presented in 2000, noted that since police work cannot be organized in an 8-hour shift basis, police personnel should be given a weekly off, or compulsorily they should be required to go on earned leave every year. Holiday homes must be constructed for police personnel. Investigation should be separated from law and order work. And in the first place, this separation should take place at police station level in all urban areas. An additional superintendent of police should be exclusively responsible to deal with crime and investigation work. The concept of VIP security has been grossly, blatantly, and presently misused. The entire concept of personal security needs a careful review and dismantling. The Malimat Committee report on the reforms of criminal justice system stated that the infrastructural facilities available to investigating officers, especially in regard to accommodation, mobility, connectivity, use of technology, training facilities, etc., are grossly inadequate and they need to be improved on top priority. It also recommended for a 5-year rolling plan which has to be prepared, and adequate funds must be made available to meet the basic requirements of personnel and infrastructure of the police. The Police Act Drafting Committee 2005 recommended that the Police Act should aim to provide better service conditions to the police personnel, including rationalizing their working hours, 1 day off in each week, or compensatory benefits in lieu. It should create a police welfare bureau to take care inter alia of healthcare, housing and legal facilities for police personnel, as well as financial security for the next of the kin of those dying in service. It further mandates the government to provide insurance cover to all the officers and special allowances to officers posted in special wings commensurate with the risk involved. To conclude, on the ethical front, the police are viewed as trustees of law, having entrusted with utmost duty to protect innocent, maintain law and order, investigate crime, and to bring the guilty to the books and also to prevent the crime. They are empowered with the authority under the law, yet they themselves are often vulnerable, becoming victims of gross violations of human rights. In fact, the International Code of Enforcement Ethics says that as a law officer, my fundamental duty is to serve the mankind, to safeguard lives and property, to protect the innocent against deception, the weak against oppression or intimidation, and the peaceful against violence and disorder, and to respect constitutional rights of all men to liberty, equality, and justice. If this is what the police can do for rest, why can't these rights of police themselves get sufficient legal protection? August Vollmer says, the ideal police officer is expected to have the wisdom of Solomon, the courage of David, the strength of Samson, the patience of Job, the leadership of Moses, the kindness of a good Samaritan, the strategy of Alexander, the faith of Daniel, the diplomacy of Lincoln, the tolerance of Carpenter of Nazareth, and finally, an intimate knowledge of every branch of natural, biological, and social sciences. When we expect so much from the police, isn't it good for them also to expect sufficient protection of law for their basic human rights? According to Gelden Heiss, police work is not just a job, but it's a calling. And hence it is essential to protect, most importantly, the human rights of police, which needs immediate legal and state attention. Police are also citizens. Police are also human beings, and hence their human rights must be respected and legally protected, and their unheard calls must be heard soon.